So in my last video, I covered what player I would take at each pick in the lottery, and in this video, I'll be covering the rest of the first round. Honestly, I believe there's a couple players available later in the draft that we will look back at and go, how did these players fall out of the lottery? Because that's just how it typically goes. And honestly, I have a few names that come to mind that I would have loved to put in the lottery, but I try to keep it somewhat realistic. Now, before I get any further into the video, do your boy a solid and hit that like button, as well as subscribe to the channel, as your support would be much appreciated. And with that out of the way, drop the intro. So at 15, I have the Wizards select the James Bouknight, and the reason is quite simple, because he's a lottery talent and probably viewed as the best available. He's essentially in the same tier as Keon Johnson and Moses Moody in my opinion. He's not the defender they are, but he's better at 3-level scoring since he can shoot and finish it. His percentages are somewhat misleading, and the eye test shows that guy could be a bucket at the NBA level who can provide a spark off the bench for the immediate future and a 20-point per game starter in the distant future. So I have him as the first pick outside of the lottery. At 16, I have the Thunder taking Kai Jones. Yet again, the Thunder will take another project player that they hope to develop into a star, and Kai fits that perfectly. He's tall, lengthy, athletic, with glimpses of ball handling and shooting, so there's a lot to love about the idea of what he can become if developed properly. And the Thunder have the right staff to do it, so if they keep their pick, I definitely see them taking Kai if he's available at 16. At 17, I have the Grizzlies taking Isaiah Jackson. He's a high energy big who just fits the identity of the Grizzlies. Even though they're not grit and grind no more, they're still a tough, gritty team with a backbone. He's the kind of center who's going to get out there and run the floor, play hard, rebound the ball, and do all the dirty work. The Grizzlies do need some help in the front court, especially after losing Gorgui Dieng, so I think he can shore it up for them in the second unit. Also, he's shown glimpses of playmaking, mostly on the short roll, which could develop over time. I think this is a solid selection for a player I believe will be a solid NBA player. At 18, I have the Thunder selecting Tre Mann. Tre will be great for what the Thunder likes to do. They play up pace and shoot a lot of threes, and that's something that he can do well. On top of that, he can play both guard spots and is one of the best prospects at making plays out of the pick and roll. He somewhat reminds me of Landry Shamet, and I wouldn't want him as the primary ball handler since his handle isn't the greatest, but overall I think he'll be the best pick that OKC can make if they stay at 18. At 19, I have the Knicks selecting Chris Duarte. The Knicks really need shooting, especially since there's a chance they lose Reggie Bullock in free agency, and besides him, there's not a lot of pure shooters on the team. I know some guys were hitting them, but I'm not extremely confident their shooting is sustainable, especially after the performance in the first round against Atlanta. And Chris Duarte is in the conversation next to Corey Kispert as the best shooter in the class, and he is decent at shooting off the dribble as well. Finally, he's a player who should perform from day one, so I definitely think he's worth the 19th pick for the Knicks team looking to stay competitive. At 20, I have the Atlanta Hawks taking Jared Butler. If he's cleared to play in the NBA because Butler had a defibrillator put in for his heart issue years ago, and this might unfortunately cost him the chance to play in the NBA if he isn't able to be cleared, or if teams determine there's too much risk involved in drafting him. Now, if he does clear, I think he'll be a great addition. He's mature for his age, spent a few years in college developing his skills, and should be able to step in day one and lead the Hawks' second unit as another ball handler and playmaker, something that the Hawks have not been able to find, even though they desperately need someone to manage the game when Trae Young is catching his breath on the bench. At 21, I got the Knicks selecting 6-foot Sharife Cooper, because if Sharife Cooper is 6'4", he's going top 5. But all jokes aside, this would be a good pick. Cooper is a dynamic point guard and has a very strong case for the best passer in the class. Good handles, very crafty, and brings that it factor that can't be measured. But when you see it, you know it, and it pops out, and it's valuable. But there are some glaring red flags with Sharife, most notably his defense and shooting. He's also not much of a leaper, so finish at the rim could be a big issue, but he's definitely a good option to have lead your second unit and maybe even become a starter caliber guard in the league at some point. Might spend some time in the G League as well, developing his skill further. At 22, I have the Lakers taking Cameron Thomas. Thomas is a microwave scorer, which is something the Lakers could use. He's not that aesthetically pleasing to watch because he scores in a herky-jerky kind of way, but he gets the job done, He loves to shoot and hopefully he improves his consistency at the next level, but regardless, he is the best option for the Lakers this late in the draft. At 23, I have the Rockets selecting Zaire Williams. Zaire was bad this year at Stanford, but he fits that mold of prototypical 3-and-D wing, long and lengthy. His game passes the eye test. So there's reason to believe that if you get him to reach his potential, you could walk away with the steal of the draft, and there's basically no risk in selecting him this late in the draft because his upside is so tremendous. At 24, I got the Rockets selecting Miles McBride, aka Deuces. Deuces is a very solid guard, and I'm higher on him than others. He's a 3-and-D point guard who plays with a chip on his shoulder, has a little Kyle Lowry in his game, does need to be an overall better playmaker, as well as control the foul trouble, which sometimes comes about due to his aggressiveness. He's also not a great finisher, but overall I think he will be the best selection for Houston at this point in the draft. At 25, I got the Clippers selecting Jaden Springer. Springer is a solid guard who has good finishing ability. Even though he doesn't have bunnies, his good core strength typically allows him to finish through contact. He's also pretty efficient at scoring, doesn't seem to force things, and there's also potential as a playmaker, even though his assist to turnover ratio was high. I do think he reads the floor fairly well, so there are optimism there. The main issue is that the lack of burst and blow by speed. This is going to cause problems with 1v1 creation, and while he shot over 40% from 3, he wasn't that confident in his shooting. He wasn't that confident in his shooting range. They constantly went underneath the screens, daring him to shoot, which kind of shows it, and he was sometimes hesitant in those moments of shooting. He doesn't have a lot of oomph to his shot. When I say oomph, I'm thinking about Damian Lillard range, like logo Lillard. He doesn't got that kind of range, but he can knock down a shot if you go underneath the screen, which is good to have. But it does worry me in some capacity that he's not extremely confident in his 3-point shot, even though he was hitting them. But at 25, I think he'll be a great pickup by the Clippers. At 26, I have the Nuggets taking JT Thor. Thor is a very interesting prospect, especially on the defensive end. He has the potential to guard 1 through 5. He's also the best big at guarding the perimeter and one of the better perimeter defenders in general, in my opinion. Moves his feet so well. He also has some offensive upside. He's already good at filling in the lanes on offense and being where he needs to be. Also isn't afraid to take a 3-point shot, even though there's work to be done on the mechanics and overall shooting consistency. He's definitely a project and patience will be key, but if developed right, he could be the perfect fit next to Nikola Jokic. At 27, I got the Nets selecting Ayo Dosunmu. This will be a good pickup for the Nets since they are likely to be losing Spencer Dinwiddie. Dosunmu is an older guard spending 3 years in college, but he's a reliable source of offense, pretty good self-creation with his herky-jerky style of offense, has good impact in the pick and roll, but most importantly projects as a good defender because of his size and length. Does need to work on his ball handling as well as reading the help defense. He makes good decisions on the first read, but sometimes fails to make that second read. Overall, be a great pickup for Brooklyn, and I got him going number 27. At 28, I have the Sixers selecting Trey Murphy. Since the Sixers seem unwilling to part ways with Ben Simmons, someone like Murphy will be an ideal fit on the team. Murphy is one of the better shooters as well as a pretty decent defender, as he's good at using his length and moving his feet on the perimeter. This would be valuable, especially if he used in a help defender setting. Best use as a 3, might be able to play some 4, but needs to add strength to consistently defend and compete with NBA level 4s. Also doesn't have much impact off the bounce, needs to prove his ball handling and passing, but the concern isn't too big because he's a very role aware type of player and doesn't try to do anything outside of his comfort on the offensive end. That's one of my main reasons for liking Murphy so much. I know he's somewhat projected to go in the second round, but picking him up late in the first round wouldn't be a bad idea. And if I'm the Sixers, he's the best option in my opinion. I wouldn't risk losing him and trying to get him later. At 29, I have the Suns selecting Josh Christopher. The Suns love the mid-range game and can use a little more firepower in their second unit, which is currently led by Cameron Payne. And I believe Christopher can provide that. He's a microwave who can get hot out of nowhere. He has really good shot creation and knows how to work all 3 levels on offense. Even though his 3-point shooting is inconsistent and he does suffer from tunnel vision as he's not much of a playmaker and has moments where he starts to force the offense, hijacking and kind of taking away from the flow of the game, which is not ideal and somewhat frustrating at times. But at 29, I think this is a solid pick. And finally, wrapping up the first round, at number 30, I have the Jazz selecting Usman Garuba. Garuba draft stock is all over the place. Some people have him going towards the end of the lottery, others have him in the 20s, and some will have him in the 2nd round. Garuba is one of my favorite players in the draft. He somewhat reminds me of an unathletic Adebayo. He has really good defensive IQ, make sure he's in the right place at the right time, which is something you want to see in a good defensive prospect. He's also one of the better built defensive players, as he should be able to hold his own in the paint as well as on the perimeter. Another great thing is that his offensive IQ is always pretty good. He has potential as a passer in the high post and on the short roll. Big concern is that he's a grounded player and doesn't possess any bunnies, making it more difficult to finish at the rim as well as contest at the rim, especially considering that he's only around 6'9". But I do feel as though he will fit in with the culture of Utah and should be able to man the 2nd unit. That's basically gonna wrap up my video here. I just finished off, covering the rest of the 1st round. If you didn't catch my, my lottery predictions, the predictions I made at each pick in the lottery, go ahead and check out that video. I'm gonna go ahead and leave at the end of this video, so go ahead and check that out. I hope that y'all enjoyed the video. I think I made some pretty good, observations. I made some pretty good choices at each pick. But y'all go ahead and tell me which ones that y'all would change, what players y'all would like to see get selected at these picks, and y'all let me know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. That's going to help me out a lot. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers here by the end of the month. Well, I guess the end of the month is only a couple of days. Probably get in the beginning of July, hopefully. But, don't forget to like my video. Don't forget to subscribe, as it really helps me out, and I've got a goal that I'm trying to reach. So I thank you for your time, and until the next one, peace.